Speaking of rivalries, Israel and Palestine, Israel and Iran, more than rivalries, well, things are heating up. The last 2 weeks have seen tension and rockets. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rushed to France to meet President Emmanuel Macron. On the agenda was Iran. Why does Israel need French support on Iran? Also, why are they interested in the Sudan? That's the latest country with which Israel has announced a peace agreement. Our next report connects the dots. With a handshake and an embrace, that's how Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was welcomed by French President Emmanuel Macron to the Élysée Palace in Paris. This was the first meeting between the two leaders since Netanyahu returned to power late last year. The mood was much more somber behind closed doors. What was on the agenda? Iran. More specifically, its nuclear program. Israel has long opposed the 2015 nuclear deal. It was signed between Iran and several world powers. The list includes the US, the UK, France, Russia and China. The deal is known as JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Iran restricted its nuclear program and the West eased sanctions. This was the deal. In 2018, the United States walked out of it under President Trump. Currently, efforts to restart the deal are stuck in a deadlock. So why did Netanyahu choose to meet Macron over Iran? Because he wants Europe to increase its sanctions against Iran. He wants Europe to sanction Iran's Revolutionary Guards, a move that both France and Germany have resisted so far. Netanyahu is banking on Iran falling out of favor with Europe. That's because Iran is supplying drones to Russia in the war against Ukraine. Plus, it has cracked down on anti-hijab protests. Israel hopes all this will sour Iran's relationship with Europe, and Netanyahu has achieved some success. Because after the meeting, the French president called out Iran over what he called the headlong rush of its nuclear program. Iran is already locked in a tense escalation with Israel. Netanyahu's visit comes just days after a drone attack. An Iranian Defense Ministry facility in Isfahan came under attack. Iran says Israel was behind the attack. Meanwhile, violence is surging in the Israel-Palestine conflict as well. Last Friday, a Palestinian gunman shot dead 7 people outside a synagogue in East Jerusalem. It was the deadliest attack targeting civilians in more than a decade. And it came just a day after an Israeli raid in the West Bank killed 10 Palestinians. A day before that, an Israeli aircraft struck Gaza in response to rocket fire by the Palestinians. In January alone, 35 Palestinians and 7 Israelis have been killed. Washington is urging for calm. Before the meeting with Netanyahu, Macron's office said the president would, and I quote, reiterate the need for all sides to avoid measures likely to feed the cycle of violence. Pro-Palestinian activists have planned a stir in Paris on Saturday. They're unhappy over Macron's decision to host Netanyahu. Amid all this chaos, there's some good news for Israel from the Sudan. Israel and the Sudan have announced a peace agreement. It will be signed in the US later this year. The deal seeks to normalize ties between Israel and the Sudan. Israel has called it historic. Their foreign minister Eli Cohen was in Khartoum, the first visit by an Israeli official to the country. So after decades of non-recognition, the Sudan will have diplomatic ties with Israel.
חזרתי מביקור בחרטום בירת סודאן.
The Israeli foreign minister said, and I quote, Khartoum is remembered in Israel as the city where the Arab countries decided on the historic 3 no's. No peace with Israel, no negotiations with Israel, and no recognition of Israel. We are building a new reality with the Sudanese, in which the 3 no's will become the 3 yeses. Yes to negotiations between Israel and Sudan, yes to recognition of Israel, and yes to peace between the states and between the peoples. With tensions on the rise, both with Palestine and Iran, Israel would be relieved that it has managed to turn at least one foe into friend.